Welcome everyone to the Solo to Entrepreneur Show. You are with me, the host Lorraine Chai, as today we'll be looking into the route of real estate. So welcome Bonnie Laslo to today's episode.
Sounds great. Wonderful. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, in terms of the podcast that I have, we look into the route of educating people, all my listeners, in terms of the possibility of probably starting up a business, buying over a business. And in your case, the reason why we have you today is to share the whole concept of real estate, where you can actually have it as a full-time thing. Now, you said that you've done real estate for over 30 years and you don't look a day over 30. So
I tell people, I go, this is what happiness looks like. This is what real estate can do for you. You know what I mean? But
absolutely,
I
I
was very,
completely
yeah,
agree.
yeah, I was very fortunate to find real estate in college. So that was my saving grace,
What were you
with
studying
finding
before that?
pre-med, pre-med. Yep, I was gonna go into like an ER doctor, or I was gonna be a pharmacist, and I was actually shadowing a doctor in the ER, and I did that for a couple years, and then like one day, I just all of a sudden I couldn't stand blood. It was the weirdest thing ever. I got passed out. You know what I mean?
It's
And so
called
I'm like,
adulthood.
I know. I'm like, what if this happened, 10 years or 8 years down the road in that medical journey, right? I'd be totally screwed. So,
Wow.
yeah. Yeah, I
Because
started
I remember I used to watch ER and Chicago Hope and all that as a child, and I loved it. But yeah, the sight of needles as an adult, I can't do it anymore. And I was going to be a veterinarian. I was going to be a pharmacist. So here you
I know,
go.
I know. I don't yeah, so I obviously had to find something different. So, here I am.
All right. So tell us, you said that you started your first real estate at age 23, or you was it earlier than that?
So, financially free at 23, first million at 26. So, I started earlier than that. So I was in college when this happened and I could not make my rent. And I kind of found that late night infomercial. It was no money down, right? And I watched it and I was able to convince my father actually into getting one of those kiddie condos, like a 4 bedroom, 4 bath. You live in one room, rent out the other ones. And I had actually pulled the whole deal together, right? I found out how much it was going to be, and I found 3 people that wanted to come live with me that would give me, first month's rent, security deposit, and with that money, I could use it as the down payment. And so I went to my dad and I was like, hey, would you be able to just co-sign on this thing? Because I mean, he had done, pretty much like a grant and stuff and financial aid in college. So I figured he would probably do this so that I could show him how the numbers would work and how I could live for free. And that's how it kind of started was
And profit
yeah,
from
I
it
could
as well, not just leaving for free.
yeah, and I told him, I was like, if you can sign this, then whenever I graduate in 4 years, then whenever I sell it, I will split the profits 50-50 with you. Right? Because he didn't have to put any money down or anything. I pretty much just rented out his signature of just having a father that would, kind of co-sign for a student that had no job and just had, a scholarship going into college. So that's how that kind of got started.
Wow. And he agreed. So that was like a different path for you that you're taking.
Yeah, he didn't have to, hear me calling him for money for rent because I'm a student, poorly mismanaging money, right? Attempting to do school and a full-time job, and it just, and then you're away from home for the first time, so then you're kind of having some fun. Full-time, college experience was not working out in regards to the money side, but I was able to do this, and the cool thing about it is one of those I ended up having like 6 of them because when it was time to graduate, everybody was graduating. And so I didn't want to sell the condo at a loss or a break even number because I wanted to make money.
Mm.
And I told my dad, I said, hey, if you're okay with like sticking in here a little bit longer, just because people just graduated, And then we'll sell whenever, those, the big flow, the bulk of everyone moving out and going someplace was gone, then we could make a higher profit margin. And he agreed to that. And so when people were leaving, I was like, okay, well, why don't I take over your condo? Like, and I was starting to, like, after I'd filled my rooms, because it was rent by the room student housing. And I was like, well, my neighbor needs some people and I get to pick my own neighbors. So I started helping out my neighbors with, having renters. And led to, one thing led to another. Next thing you know, I had 6 of those condos and I worked out lease options on them where I was renting it from them for $750. And I rented out each of the rooms for $350, right? So that's like $1,400 coming in, and I would pay them $750. Imagine that kind of spread on one condo, right?
Yeah.
And then I had 6 of them, and I was living in one, and I was there, so it was pretty easy to kind of do. And that's when I started realizing how real estate worked and the power of the lease option. So I had negotiated all the prices pretty much for, hey, I'll take, I'll rent it from you, make sure you can, pay your mortgage and stuff when you're going off to whatever new job you have. And then in a couple years, I'll go ahead and sell it and pay it off and stuff, or do a refinance to where they would no longer be on the hook for any sort of mortgage. And they were happy with that because they got a monthly rental income from me and didn't have to worry about any of the repairs. And that's how it kind of started, and in that realm of thing.
So real
But
estate, so Bonnie is based in the US, in Florida, and real estate in different parts of the world, it all differs. It's different depending on where the location is and the pricing and the situation, right? The surroundings. Like Sydney is really expensive. I do understand that certain states in the US, the price is different, especially like in New York, it's like really expensive, right? But the prices in New York it's cheap, but the management cost of it is really expensive. So it's like looking into different costs, and it's how you borrow money and how you put in the 20% or 30% deposit to start the real estate. But I remember when I rented a whole house because at that time I was leasing out my own apartment, and I was renting a house, and the same as you, I was renting the rooms out. So it was actually a profit where I was paying rent on top of having extras to pay bills and have extras, on top of all of that, just because I was renting individual rooms.
yeah.
But with the concept of renting, right? Like I've seen your videos, right? And for someone that buys over a house, let's say a cheap house, a small low cost house, or a single family house, I see the horror of how you've opened the fridge up and stuff and the smell and things like that. Like, how do you deal with that? And like for someone that
So
wants to invest in a property to want to deal with the renters, how do you deal with that?
So that will not normally happen. Yeah. So, but the thing is, here's my thing, guys. Like, okay, deal with the maggot fridge for millions of dollars. It's up to you. I teach people how to do real estate as a hobby, right? That's why I'm called the hobby millionaire. And then you can decide if you want to take it up a notch after you have 5 units, right? Or 5 doors in your portfolio. But the maggot fridge, the sewer backups, all that kind of stuff doesn't really happen that often. I do have the videos of that just because it's an attention getter, right? People like to see, what I'm dealing with. But a lot of times, if you catch it before, like if someone's behind on rent, I also, make sure that my office and stuff, they need to check to see if the power's on. The power's not on, then I go in there immediately to check the appliances to make sure they're not destroying them and, that kind of happening. So a lot of this stuff can be avoided as long as, if something's weird, then you need to check the utilities. And then you can go there right away and make sure there's not any rotten fish or chicken or whatever. But then again, when there is a maggot fridge and I'm buying a property, I will tell you this, that's like a good $5,000 to $10,000 discount, right? So throwing away a refrigerator that you can turn around and buy for $500 to $800, I think is worth a trade-off of a $5,000 to $10,000 discount. So the worse that it kind of looks, the better. And then I mean, I remember being on a budget and having not enough money to really, get new refrigerators and stuff. And I remember taking those refrigerators to the car wash, right? Like putting it in the back of a truck and taking the fridge. I'm like, I'm not cleaning this stuff. I'm like, guys, load it up into my truck. And guess what? We're taking it down to the car wash and we're going to hose this bad boy out. So, I mean, where there's a will, there is a way of how to do things. But as long as you're making a profit margin, whether you're renting and you're doing a rent to own or lease option, or you're just buying it outright, remember, live where you want to live, but you invest where it makes sense. Okay.
Hmm.
So if you're living in Beverly Hills, probably not the best place to, invest in a rental house per se, because for the same price of a house, you can go buy an apartment complex. And so I teach everyone it needs to be $100,000 and below per house or per apartment, so that when you're looking at apartment complex, those are the magic numbers, $100,000 and below per door. And then also a 10 cap. And as long as you're playing that game conservatively like that, which I've been doing for 30 years, there's always going to be properties and houses like that. And it doesn't necessarily need to be right in the middle of downtown or anything. It can, I like looking at international airports and making sure it's anywhere from, at the most, maybe 45 minutes to an hour outside of an international airport, because you've got outlying, cities that are close to, metro areas. And yeah, 30 years, I haven't had a problem, and everybody, like right now, you can pretty much look at wherever you are, see what happens to be 100,000 and below per unit or per house, that's closest to you, and pick one, right? Because you only need one. And then if you're not there, get a management company to go ahead and do that for you. Because no matter
Well,
what,
the
when
the
we're in real
cost that you're mentioning is the cost of the US, so it's not the same in other parts of the world. So I have looked in the houses in the US in terms of like the 100,000 and below, but for those of you that are not in the US, the prices are different. So don't go looking for houses that are 100,000 and below. But let's look in the US market because that's where you're based, right? Now,
yeah,
I seeing those videos, like I will be gagging and it'll be really difficult to have to deal with. Like, how do you deal with those?
you'll go in there and I'm pretty desensitized to that stuff, but I mean, if you don't want to do it, then have the housekeeper do it, have the cleaners do it, have the maintenance guy go ahead and do it, right? You don't have to be the one, to do it, but you get to have team members that are okay with getting it done, right? Because you're going to run up on all sorts of things. And think a plumber who's dealing with, who knows what all day long, a bad refrigerator is nothing to them. Nothing,
Right.
right?
So to
So
start out
they
with,
their
in
glove.
terms of real estate, what do you do
What now? Say that again.
to start with real estate? Like, let's say somebody has never invested in anything before. Like, what is your advice to start real estate? Let's say an
If
affordable
you're pretty,
country.
yeah, I mean, if you're, and the thing is, it could be in your country, could be anywhere, as long as there's a $200 minimum profit margin and it's a 10 cap. Okay. Now, if you're just starting out, and especially if you're young, because it's easy to become financially free if you're a student, right? Because you don't have a lot of debt. And if you get into renting the house where you're living for free, right, you can get yourself financially free very easy and very quickly. So if you get a 4 or 5 bedroom house, you live in one, the master bedroom or whatever, and you rent out the other rooms, that's going to be a very quick way for you to figure out how to profit from real estate. And you can decide if you want to replicate and do more of that. But the $200 benchmark per 100 grand. So that means, if you're renting something, let's say or you buy something for 100,000, you need to rent it out for a minimum of 1,200. But if it's $200,000, you now need to rent it out for 2,400. Okay. So you have to look at what those numbers kind of look like, and you can get it by rent by the bedroom, or you could do short-term rentals like Airbnb, renting to travel nurses. There's a multitude of different ways to drive the rents up to where it's going to make sense for you. But a
So,
startup, if you're young, get the
so
get
what
the roommate.
happens? What happens if you have like a difficult tenant? Like for me, when I was doing Airbnb, I had a guy that decided to take over the house, and that's because I was a single person in that house. So what happens was he peed all over the toilet. He started taking over the free rooms, bought furniture for himself, and started to freeload in there. It ended up for me involving my neighbors who were like bigger guys. But like
Exactly.
it was horror for me. So like, what would your advice be for situations like that?
So my quote to the world in my book, right? The Real Estate Hobby Millionaire is time is valuable, teams are best. Use them both wisely and I'll show you success. So there's a system to everything. And number one, just like rent by the room, no one was able to get into the other bedrooms since I was running it by room because I had locked up the other rooms. So that eliminates that situation. And also if somebody is not doing what you want them to do per se, then you can actually occupy one of the other rooms and you can run your business out of it by, always being around. And, because if you make things uncomfortable, a lot of times, people will leave. But if someone is a problem, I've been very fortunate that my maintenance contractors come to the rescue with a lot of stuff. So if I need them to go and do stuff for me, they're more than happy to do that. If there's a problem child, then you do the proper notices, and you do the eviction process. And then you can evict them. And that's when the sheriff comes there. And the sheriff will either allow you to put the stuff curbside on the street, after you're finished with that process, or you're going to padlock the place. Okay. So I've been in a multiple different markets. I've been in multiple states, different places. Every city kind of has its own nuance to how the eviction process works. But as long as you have an eviction attorney on your team, and another thing is invest where it's an eviction friendly state, right? Like
Mm.
here in the United States, California, I'm not touching a 10-foot pole, right? But where I, pretty much work out of, which is Florida, North Carolina right now, I've done Texas, Ohio, South Carolina. I mean, there's multitude of and Georgia too, multitude of other places where you just, file the proper paperwork, you serve the proper notices, you go through the process, and then you're going to be able to get the property, back. But that's why I want people to get up to 5 units, because if one of them isn't performing, you've got the other four that are still cash flowing, which help to offset that one. And your first ones, especially if you're a startup, I want them to be no-brainer deals. And a lot of the hobby millionaires that are coming in and building their portfolios for the first time are doing no-brainer deals. And if you don't know what you're doing, partner in with an advanced investor. I've got partners that are brand spanking new startups and everything. I know what I'm doing. And when we partner in, then they get to watch, learn, and replicate, right? And it's just doing the same thing over and over again for 30 years. And I've been successful. Like I said, my target was to get $1 million in real estate, by 27. And I actually netted 20 at 26 $1 million, in net worth and everything versus just 1 million in real estate, which was like phenomenal. Once I saw what the numbers were, because I went to one of those seminars and I had no idea that I was financially free. I didn't even know what that was, right? I didn't even know what an accredited investor was until I started going to the business conferences, and they make you break down your income, your expenses, and your passive income and stuff. And I'm like, uh, holy cow, I'm financially free. I didn't know, that having all of this coming in and doing that, but it's, for me, it's pretty easy to teach that to people. And I've been very successful with replicating myself and, getting people to understand in layman terms. So it's not complicated. It's very simple, of how to get, rental properties and just keep doing the same thing over and over again, which will change your life, your family's life. And that way, if you've got a job, then you can make enough money that is matching as a hobby, and then you can decide to walk from your job if you want to, because if you got
So
fired, who cares?
exactly. So for someone who was financially free at 26, what are the fun things that you used to do back in the day?
Okay, well, financially free at 23, first million at 26. I've tried to retire like 3 times. So the first time I did it, I was like, okay, this is totally enough. I don't want to be greedy, right? You kind of set these things when I have X amount of dollars and X amount of passive income, I'm retiring, right? So I did that. And so what that entailed was me having a lot of old friends, okay? Because whenever I would go on the cruise ships or I'd go to these nice hotels and everything, it's all older people, right? Because they're retired. And then I ended up in a country club, 30 years too early. So I met a lot of friends, and at the country club, I started interviewing these people. Just, I'm like, this is what the end is supposed to look like, right? Country club living, chilling out. You get your massages, you do your golfing, whatever you want to do, you have the freedom to do so. And every single one of those people I interviewed at the clubhouse, all of them had, in one way, shape, or form, gotten their piece of real estate free and clear. And that allowed them to really kick up the churning their investments and everything, to be able to end up, retiring properly. And so that was very interesting, for me to learn from these people. But yeah, I love going to the spa, and you know, after 3 years, you can you can cap out on margaritas. I learned that. You can cap out on margaritas, you can cap out on the fine dining. You can get to the point where you can go into the mall and get whatever the heck you want to get. And then you get bored. And so then you come back in to play the game again and help other people replicate what you had. So I guess for selfish reasons, I started teaching because I started teaching my friends um how to do what I was doing so that I could literally have a team of people that was working in my office, that like my best friend and stuff. So when two of us were on vacation, the other two could hold down the fort, right?
Mm.
So this was the perfect way. And then I always set up my business to where I knew that I could run it from a cruise ship. I could run it from the beach. I could run it all remotely. So I didn't necessarily have an office to go to every day. So be careful of that, because you can definitely set yourself up where you have another job. And I wanted to be crystal clear on my intentions of how I wanted to create my life, so that it was remote and it was flexible, and I would never have to go into an office unless I wanted to.
So you are not considered as a real estate agent. You're just an investor, isn't it? And you teach people how to invest.
So I'm a real estate investor, and I've been a real estate investor for what, 20? So I got my license back when I was 18 and let it go back in the day, um, because I had one seller say to me, "Oh, you have a real estate license, so you must know something that I don't know, like a Walmart's going to be built next door or something like that." And so at 18, I remember I was like, let me just let this thing go, because it seems to be, a problem for me when I'm trying to buy properties. And then 20 years later, no license, no nothing. I ended up getting my license again because I started having other real estate agents that were in my hobby millionaire group having a problem with those agencies allowing them to buy their own properties and to become their own best client. So I did end up getting my real estate license a few years ago for hobby millionaires so that they could learn how to still become their own best client versus, being the typical real estate agent. So yeah. And I remember we were buying apartments, and I wanted to say, like, the license to get it is cheap. It's like $500 to $1,000, and it was going to save me like 100,000 in commission. So I was like, let me go get this license real quick, and then I can get the $100,000 commission from the apartment complex we're about to buy. So I did it for, cost benefit reasons, right? Because if you invest in yourself $1,000 and you get back 100 grand, I think that that's probably, a really good cash on cash return. And yeah, so I've always done that. And my partner too, who was a hobby millionaire student, he didn't want to get his real estate license as well. And then whenever he was going to sell his house, I'm like, I can take your $10,000 and list it for you. I go, but $1,000 for the class, and then you can get the $10,000 commission versus me. So you decide what you want to do. Is it worth 30 days of your time? Right. So that was something to, consider. I don't necessarily want people to get caught up in being a real estate agent. Real estate agents, have brought me many deals. I've used real estate agents to help me build the portfolio. But you can get trapped in that commission versus keeping the property for yourself and allowing it to cash flow for you and also go up in value over time.
So for someone that is in debt, right, with like student loans and stuff like that, is there a possibility of getting out of debt through real
Yeah.
estate?
Absolutely, 100%. So, whenever you're doing real estate, if you want to do wholesaling, that's pretty much like being an unlicensed real estate agent, right? So, whether you're getting a commission or you're getting an assignment fee, you can use that money as your hobby money, to pay off those debts. But if you learn, like, let's say that you were learning from me and you're in a shit ton of debt, right? If you're showing up to my Zoom room and learning on a regular basis, and we built a relationship over time, then, I would probably look at that debt and go, okay, let's do a debt restructure, right? Because whatever that debt interest rate is, you can do a cash out refinance on a deal, a piece of property, and lower, that interest rate down to, 6 or 7% and stretch it out over 30 years worth of time, right? And then that debt would be gone, your credit would be a virgin again. And then you can move on. But the thing is, if you have bad credit or a shit ton of debt, which I've had both, okay, because I was a student and I was irresponsible. I remember I had like 20 credit cards at one time because
Oh,
they were giving out, yeah, because at the college at UF, they were giving out free umbrellas and M&Ms before class, and you're hanging out there. So you start filling out this paperwork just to get all these free, swag things, right? And so
so
I
you
had a
get
lot of,
freebies with credit cards. Is that what
yes,
kind
when
of
you
sucked
signed
you in?
up, they did, yes. So I don't know if they still do that on college campuses, but if you sign an application for their credit card, they'll give you all of these goodies, right? And so, yeah,
They tried to do that in the US when I was shopping. Like you're like, oh, you want to get this membership card, and I thought it was a membership card. I didn't realize it was a credit card. And then they're like, oh, we need your details and your passport. It's like, what do you need a passport for? For a membership? They're like, oh, no, this is a credit card. I'm like, You're gonna charge me interest?" They're like, yeah, there's an interest on top of that. I was like, oh, okay. So it's like understanding what you're signing in the dotted lines, isn't it? In terms of what's out there.
yes. Yes, absolutely. And then, the cool thing too is when you retire, or when you start surrounding yourself around people that are retired and people that are more successful than you, and you have the debt like they're going to hold you high, they're going to call you forward, and they're going to offer coaching and mentorship of how to get yourself out of that situation. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? But with real estate, it's very easy. You could do one deal, do a cash out refinance, and then all your credit card bills are gone. They're just rolled into, being a more manageable, efficient monthly payment or something. Or you could, do one deal and pay them all off or something like that. But, surround
So
yourself with really good people.
so I know of a lot of people that go into real estate as a real estate agent. And the difference between a real estate agent and a real estate investor, which one would you think is more is like better, or you
Oh,
would
investor.
recommend?
So real estate. So remember, a real estate investor, 90% of the millionaires in the world are through real estate investing. Real estate agent, they work for the investor. Okay. And it's a job. So, I mean, that's totally like if you got sick, right? Like you don't make money. But
So
if you
so here
get
is my
sick, you have
understanding. Here's my understanding between real estate agents and real estate investors. So real estate agents, you get the commissions immediately, so the money comes in like very quickly, right? But the thing is, if you don't work and you don't sell and you don't get all this real estate through your system, you don't get paid. As a real estate investor, money keeps coming in.
Well, it's a real estate agent is a job. So just like you're an accountant, just like you're a doctor, just like you're an engineer or working at McDonald's, it's a paycheck. So that's like being an agent is a job. Real estate investor, where you're building the wealth and everything, you come to the point where you've acquired enough of a portfolio that if you got fired or if you got sick or anything like that, who cares? Because the rent checks still come in every month. You could be bedridden, right? And you could not show up to work for the rest of your life and those rent checks still come in, because if you got sick and
It's
you couldn't,
constant cost and cash flow, isn't it, comparatively to
absolutely, you set
if
it
you're
up once, it's
yeah.
yeah, they're golden gooses and they lay golden eggs, and you spend the golden eggs, you don't ever touch the goose. And so an investor is collecting, all the gooses that lay the golden egg. right? And so that's why you want to have your portfolio to do that. That's how you're going to get financially free. And that's how you're going to get the freedom to do whatever you want to do, or send your kids to private school, or to stroke a check for anybody that gets sick. You want to make sure you have the freedom to not go to a place that you hate every morning. You know what I mean? It's like there's a lot of financial suffering out there, and my role on this planet is to lessen suffering, whether it's financial or personal, because you don't have to be alone, in going through this process. It gets to be fun, and it gets to be profitable, and it is something that everyone gets to learn as a hobby, because you cannot save your way into retirement these days. Like, it's just not going to happen fast enough for you. And I don't want people to, be 60 years old or something, looking back and realizing you chased a paycheck your entire life. And then at 60, what? You're going to go out and hike up mountains and go travel and stuff. You're half the time people are eating so shittily, because I was trading my health for money for a long time, right? And, then when you're retired, what do you want to do? You want to sit on the couch because you can't move and you're kind of sick. And, there's all sorts of weird things. So I think that people get to realize that you make the money early throughout, your life, so that you can also enjoy it and do the things that you want to do and have enough freedom to be able to do that. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't know, 2 weeks a year, mm-mm,
So
that's
from
not
my
worth
understanding,
it.
you're not going to retire, right? You've tried retiring like 3 times.
Yeah, I tried tweet. I mean, but what is retirement? You know what I mean? So I mean, you could, I guess I could be considered retired, because I don't need to do these things. But I have a duty. I have learned how to do this at a very young age. It's very simple to replicate. I've been successful in replicating at least, I think, 30 millionaires that I've counted. Who knows how many others that I haven't counted out, right? And it's fulfilling for me. I've done enough transactions where it's kind of boring on my end, but to see people going through the process for the first time, or seeing people get financially free for the first time, it's exciting for me to see. And
So,
I feel successful that I'm replicating that and making sure that they can also turn around and teach it to other people, because they need to learn, earn, and return.
so what is your knowledge in terms of Section 8?
Okay, so Section 8 is government money, and I do take Section 8. My portfolio was about 10%. I decided to increase it to about 30%, but they have a voucher, and they asked, do you take Section 8? I'm like, yeah. And so they'll come and look at it. If they like it, then we fill out the paperwork, send it in. Inspector comes out to make sure everything's good. They verify the rents are okay in that zip code. And then they move in, and the government drops that money into the bank account on a monthly basis. Right now, I think the last count, they're dropping close to, I think it was 40 or 50,000 a month, just in Section 8 rents coming, into the portfolio. So I'm a big proponent of working with Section 8 as well as nonprofits. So it doesn't have to just be Section 8. You can work with nonprofits as well and house their people. And there's also
And
other,
that will be covered by the
corporate.
system, yeah?
Yeah, yep, it is. Yeah, it's like Health and Human Services over here in the state. So I'm not sure, what type of programs you guys have, but anyone that is doing nonprofits or Section 8 or government contracts in general, those are really helpful to have that be a portion of your portfolio. But I'm not a proponent of having it be all of my portfolio, just in case something were to happen, right? I want to make sure that I'm well diversified.
So who do you help? Who does your company help?
Anyone who's willing to come into the Zoom room. We meet 3 times a week. And if anyone's looking to do real estate as a hobby, whether you're a startup or an advanced investor, our room pretty much has, I try to keep it small enough to where everyone has a chance to talk and, do their check-in and talk about their deals and everything. So we average between 15 to 25 people, maybe 30 at a time in a room. Otherwise, then I need to do breakout rooms, or, shift people to one of the other days during the week. But so far it's been very successful. I've been doing it for free. I train people for free for the past decade. So it's been over 10 years.
So it's
And
not like a
yeah,
membership subscription kind of thing.
no, not at all. No.
So if someone wants to get you involved in terms of
No, I
helping
remember what
them
it was like for
get
people to
their real estate, so how would you be able to help them for those that are interested in getting their first real estate investment?
show up to the Zoom room. Show up to the Zoom room. We meet, like I said, Monday, it's or sorry, Tuesday at noon Eastern Standard Time, and then there's Tuesday and Wednesday 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in case they have kids and they need to wait for them to go to bed and stuff. So I've kind of made it to where people can listen in on their lunch break and ask questions and work on their portfolio for themselves, or, at 7 p.m. at night when they've pretty much done dinner and put everyone, down for some quiet time for themselves. But to section out 1 hour for themselves, I think is necessary. If you can do all three, days during the week while, you can, put in that time, that's plenty of time for you to build your portfolio and start up and get to at least 5 properties on the side, or build enough relationship. And if you're an advanced investor, then maybe invest in apartment complexes with some other partners too.
Amazing. So if someone that looks as young as you, I do understand, we look younger when we're happy, right? Because people
Yes.
keep thinking I'm like in my early 20s. I'm like, at 15 years, that's my age. Instead, the years keep growing in terms of that. And I do know that I think you'll be the same case in terms of the friends who are not in the same path wavelength as you, where we look way younger and happier in terms of what we do in our life. So it's doing what we want, and doing what we love doing and enjoy doing in our lives in terms of business or personal.
Absolutely. And the thing is, you want to look at everybody that's in your life and decide, do I want to see this person for the next 10 years, right? So whether it's a partner or a friend or a service provider or a tenant or a contractor, like anyone, like look at everybody in your surrounding and go, would I want to have this person in my life for the next 10 years? And unfortunately, people who have jobs, they don't have the freedom to make those choices, to keep their space clean, with good people. And I just think financial freedom so that you have personal freedom, I think is very important, and it will take less of a toll on your body with being stressed out and doing things that you don't want to do, right? It doesn't feel good to be, forced into doing things you don't want to do. And for me, I was allergic to waking up at 8 or 9 o'clock and going to a job. So every time I had a job, which my first job pretty much in college, right? Because I knew I was going to get into real estate. I wanted, of course, I did the whole waitress thing for a little bit in college just because, right? We wanted to save money on food and drinks and going out, right? But my main job, I was like, okay, I'm doing real estate, so let me go get a job at an apartment complex. So I became a leasing agent at an apartment complex. I kept them at 100% occupancy for 7 years. I was just doing my job, so I thought that was normal, right? And I pretended that apartment complex belonged to me. And so I
Mm.
started learning every single nuance, every single skill of what it took to run the whole place by myself, kind of thing. And pretended as if it were mine. And now today to own apartment complexes like that too, is really cool. And it was such a good skill set to learn for anyone that's getting in, or any kids that need a job in college or need a job now or whatever. Get a job in an apartment complex where you can get paid to learn, right? You're getting paid to learn how to own these things, and it'll get you comfortable too with leasing and filling it up so you're not scared about vacancy and not being able to make your mortgage. And then also you can build the relationships with the contractors, because I've had, ceiling fans installed for a 6 pack, So, I mean, there's different relationships you can build, with, people that are looking for side work or just friends in general, that you're going to have a really good time doing real estate, but also, getting yourself to millionaire status if you want, or just getting yourself financially free. I'm fine with that. But like I said, as a hobby, there's a system with me, which is first you're going to get to your 5 units so that we know you're coachable, right? And then from there, you're going to want to match what your job income is, okay, or your financial free, number, whatever that looks like. So whether it's your job number or your financially free number, whichever one is lower, that's going to be your next one. And then your next one will be matching the job, let's say. And then after you match your job, then accredited investor status is going to be the next step. So there is a process to it, but you do the same thing over and over again, and anyone and everyone can do this because guess what? Just like medical, everyone needs housing. That's not gonna, no one's living under bridges all of a sudden. So, it's a recession-proof real estate investing method. And when 2008 happened, where there's meltdowns and stuff, everyone downsized into our properties, right? So our rents went up. So hobby millionaires are all happy and everything because not only did we have more deals, but at that point we had higher rents and people were getting foreclosed on left and right. No one was leaving. Like
Mm.
so renewal rates were even, higher too. So real estate investing just is something everyone gets to learn. It's a necessity. It's a game I think that's very fun to play. And it's going to allow you to surround yourself with whoever you want to surround yourself with and be able to have more time with your family or, actually do what life is, meant to be here for, which is to enjoy it.
And not working till like 60 or 70, like having that freedom, isn't it?
Unless you want to, because it keeps your mind sharp. But the thing, it's always knowing that at any moment in time, I can hand my portfolio over to a property management company and say, peace out. Right. Or at any moment in time, I could put for rent signs in front of all of them and I bought them all at $100,000 and below per unit. And knowing I could liquidate my entire portfolio in probably 30 days if I wanted to, and just, say game over. But
Mm.
having that freedom and knowing that you can do that, then it's like you don't really want to do, what am I going to do? Sit on the couch all day? I mean, that's not very fulfilling.
True, true. Right, Bonnie, you gave us a lot of insights and advice in terms of all this concept about real estate, especially in the US. So if anyone's out there that wants to look into the investing in the US, there's a possibility there because I'm also looking into that part of real estate in different parts of the world. I will, Bonnie, with your free thing, your free 3 Zoom calls per week, I'll get the details and information from you. I'm going to leave it in the description below. Thank you,
Of
Bonnie, for
course.
today. It was been fun having you and listening to your experience, especially with the transition from a medical student to real estate agent or management into a waitress into now a real estate investor. Global, should we
Yeah.
say?
Yep. Yeah, investing is definitely the way to go. I would happily say and assure anyone this is a game worth playing and you and your family can play it together. Parents can play it with their kids and everyone learning how to become a trust fund baby, I think is a very good thing. It's kind of like see how the wealthy are, living life and just replicate it. So and I've been very fortunate to be able to convert things down into more layman terms and keep it simple, but also stay accessible to the general population because normally people who have built a portfolio like myself aren't really accessible to the general
Mm,
population. So, I do that for myself because I remember 3 times a week it's like my way of giving back, and also making sure that anyone who is wanting it can definitely have a millionaire in their life and learn from them because in college that's what I said. When I was making more money than my professors, my thing was okay, I'm just going to learn from millionaires and everything. And yeah, making more money than your professors doing this side hobby of real estate was definitely an achievement, but remember it still does take a little bit of learning, but it's still very, very simple. And if someone is ready, willing, and able, you could totally have yourself financially free in a year's time versus it taking me, years and years to do. That's why it's good to get around people that have done what you're looking to do so you can collapse time.
absolutely. And I always tell everyone, if an opportunity comes your way, take it, especially when you're offering your services for free 3 times a week. Like that's a lot of your time on the table with, meeting with anyone out there who wants to learn. Take it and show up. I think that's the 2 main thing. Like take the opportunity and show up and,
Yeah.
take action in terms of what you need to
And
do to have that financial freedom.
And I'll add, it's experiential learning. So it's not just sitting here listening to me talk. You're actually watching the deals happening. You're looking over the shoulder of everyone in the room that is doing their deals, doing their acquisitions, doing their refinances, doing their leasing, doing their lawsuits of eviction. So it's learning by really submerging yourself in the middle of other real estate investors' portfolios.
So if anyone else wants to learn more, I will put through at all contact details and social media links so you can follow Bonnie. You can come for her free event or her free 3 day, 3 sessions a week kind of thing. So if you have any questions whatsoever, follow her on social media and you can ask her questions over there. But until next time, thank you, Bonnie, for today. I shall see all of you for next time. If you enjoyed today's episode, please do like, subscribe, and share this episode with your friends.